nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. For the next hour, we will control all that you see and hear. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
Hello, my name is Duncan and welcome to Baft Books and Back Away from the Donkey. And today I'm going to talk to you about iRobot, but it's not the iRobot you think it is. This is, I hope the light's okay, this is my third video of the day. I'm recording a few at the same time. I have my team of specially trained puffins that have been setting it all up and making sure that I'm directing all this correctly. So hopefully this should go quite smoothly. But yes, I'm talking about iRobot, but it's not the one you think of. It's not the Isaac Asimov book from 1950, 51, 52. I can't remember off the top of my head. This is about Adam Link Robot. Okay, I've got some notes in front of me just so I remember. Adam Link was published in Amazing Stories from about 1939 to 42. There are 10 or 11 Adam Link stories. And he was, at the time, one of the most popular robots of the time. The title O Robot is actually of the first story. And what happened is Isaac Asimov's publisher saw the title of the story from the original ones and basically stole it. And Isaac Asimov himself admitted, you know, even though his is the most famous one, that, you know, they were there first. It was written by Eander, which is actually two brothers. It was a pseudonym for two brothers, which is Otto and Earl. Otto and Earl Binder. Sorry about that, my brain went a bit blank. Otto and Earl Binder. Otto was the main writer. He went on to work for Marvel and DC, and was one of the co-creators of Supergirl. I originally, for some reason, I'd not heard of Adam Link. You know, even though I read so much science fiction and things, it's one of these things that sort of passed me by. There is a 1964 episode of The Outer Limits called iRobot, and it was on our local television recently, and I thought, oh, an adaptation of the Asimov story, another one I'd not seen. So I watched it, and it was not what I was expecting. It wasn't that one. So I did some research and found out that it was from the Binder brothers, and it was about Adam Link. But what was interesting is they did a reboot of the Outer Limits TV series in the early 90s, about the same time as the Twilight Zone, and they redid the story. And the story actually has got Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame in it, both the 1964 one and the 1990s one. And he appeared in both of them. But there are all these stories, and I was looking around to try and get a copy because I wanted to read them. To get hold of a printed copy is quite expensive and quite thin on the ground because they are technically out of print. I discovered a Kindle version, which was a reasonable price, and it seems to be okay-ish put together. It's not the best. They've taken away the original titles and just done it chapter 1, chapter 2, but it has all the stories in it. So if you want to read them, that's where easiest place to get them. I read them, a quite interesting read, because in some ways it reminds me of the robots from, like, if you think WALL-E, the Disney film? But yes, that sort of robot, and even the robot number 5 from Short Circuit, the films from the early 80s. It's like a friendly robot. The first story, which is called iRobot, is basically he's created, and then his creator gets killed, and he's put on trial for the murder. And then it's like some of the moral quandaries around him and him wanting to become a citizen. They are very childlike. They're written almost like children's stories. They feel like children's stories. I said I'll give you a list of the names of the stories. You start off with iRobot, which is the short story when he's created, and then you get the trial of Adam Link Robot, which is the one that was done in the Outer Limits episodes. Then you've got Adam Link in Business, Adam Link's Vengeance, Adam Link Robot Detective, Adam Link Champion Athlete, Adam Link Fights a War, Adam Link in the Past, Adam Link Faces a Revolt, and Adam Link Saves the World. I said up to the last two, which is Faces Revolts and Saves the World, I said it's all very almost childlike. They almost read like children's books. You haven't got the depth that you would have in Asimov robot stories or even other robot stories around the same time. You've got a little bit of the moral quandary about, should they be counted as man, but not in the same way. The prose is pretty basic. And, as reading material, I think they're worth read. They're worth read out of interest if you've got interest in almost science fiction history. But if you're expecting some really deep depths stories, no, that's not them. But what's quite funny is in the last two, in Adam Link Faces the Result and Adam Link Saves the World, it almost feels like somebody different has written them, because he almost changes character. He goes from being a total pacifist and not wanting to work for the army to aliens invading and him ripping people's heads off. Yes, it's like that sort of extreme A. It is quite the final one. Is Adam Link Saves the World is quite a gruesome story. It's just quite strange in the way it paces when you read them all, and it's just really, really quite strange. But they are, as a historical document of the way robots developed in fiction and what have you, and things. You got to think this was 1939 to the early 40s. It is really interesting if you put them in context with all that was around at the time. I know Isaac Asimov's admitted that when he read the trial of Adam Link, that it sort of inspired him to write Robbie, his first story that's in the I, Robot collection. Asimov was able to get more moral depth to them. More discussions around, I think the three laws of robotics that he created almost helped with the discussion about what could be human and what you could count of and what they could do. Because if you go through I will briefly sort of sum up each of the stories. As I said, you have the iRobot, which is when he's created. You have the trial of Adam Link in business, which is when, as it is, he sets up a business. And then you get a couple of others. Then you get the interesting one, Robot Detective, when he almost you get these cut out criminals that he's following and trying to do, because everybody's trying to put away his partner. He basically builds a female robot, which unsurprisingly is called Eve, because he's Adam, and she is put up for a murder of somebody as well, and she goes to prison, and then does his detective thing. Champion Athlete is just bizarre. The Fights to War, and in the past, they're all quite intriguing stories, but it's weird. They obviously, you can tell that they were serialized for the magazines. And whereas other ones, when they do fix-up novels and put things that were serialized in those sort of magazines, can work as one big novel, these don't work like that. But I said it's weird that the change of character from the last one. I'm not sure whether almost Saves the World would have been in 1942, so it would have been part way into the Second World War. And I'm wondering whether the change of tone of the aliens invading and him going there, ripping their heads off and working with the army was something to do with that, which would make sense, because when the first one, let's look at the data. The first one was January 1939, and I said they do feel quite passive, quite, as I said, quite Wall-E, Short Circuit like, until you get to those last couple of stories. And thinking about it now, 1942, partway through the Second World War, it could have almost been like a sort of propaganda piece. May not have been consciously done, but that's almost what it feels like. But yes, so that is one of the earliest robot stories, really. And I said there was two brothers that did it, Earl and Otto Binder. Otto went on to, I think Otto wrote most of them, because Earl did a lot of the finance stuff, a lot of the publicity stuff, and Otto went on. I said he worked for DC and Marvel, helped create Supergirl, and quite a lot of other quite well-known characters. So I'm pretty sure that, I'm not saying that Earl didn't put ideas through, but that Otto did the actual writing for most of them. But if you want to read them, I would recommend reading them, especially if you've got interest in robots and science fiction history, but don't expect great prose or writing. They are more almost like a curiosity piece, and they are really feel quite basic. The other thing, though, what is worth watching is the actual Outer Limits episode. I said the one from 1964, which is the original Outer Limits TV series, and even the reboot from 1992-ish, I think it is. I have managed to get hold of copies of both of those to watch them, to compare them. They're both very similar, and in some ways they expand the story a little more, put a little more depth on them. So yeah, so that's my recommendation. If you're interested in robots, it is out of print as far as I know in normal print, but there is a Kindle version that's been whacked together. As with a lot of these Kindle versions, I find with a lot of the Kindle versions, when they put together, especially old texts that aren't available anywhere else, it's just like a scanned and thrown together, and there's faults in them. This one's not too bad, but you're not getting any bells or whistles on there. But just to read the text, it's really it's worth it. I think it cost me £2.50 or something to buy it. So it's quite cheap for Kindle. Sometimes Kindle books are incredibly overpriced, but for that, it was well worth it. So yeah, I will see you on my next video, which I don't know what it's going to be on. Well, I've got vague ideas, but I won't tell you. And I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thanks very much.